This week's episode is sponsored by Leica.
You're listening to the B&H Photography Podcast. For 50 years, B&H has been the professional source for photography, video, audio, and more. For your favorite gear, news, and reviews, visit us at bnh.com or download the B&H app to your iPhone or Android device. Now here's your host, Alan Weitz.
Greetings and welcome to the B&H Photography Podcast. My name is Alan Weitz.
And I'm Jill Waterman.
And like the cliff swallows of Capistrano, don't be surprised if our audio engineer, Mike Weinstein, swoops in with a question or two somewhere along the line. It's likely that everybody listening has used, or at the very least heard of, Adobe's ubiquitous piece of software called Photoshop. But how many of you are familiar with, or maybe even know the name of the very first and perhaps the most eccentric of the evangelists working behind that magic curtain? Well, you're about to meet him today in our latest episode featuring pioneers of photography and imaging. As Adobe employee number 38, graphic designer Russell Preston Brown was in the room where brothers Thomas and John Knoll showed up back in 1988 to demonstrate a new piece of picture editing software they came up with. It didn't even have a name yet. Suitably impressed with what he saw, Russell made a beeline to Adobe co-founder John Warnock and uttered the impressive, "Buy it now." 35 years later, Russell has not lost an ounce of passion for concocting magic with digital imaging tools and for sharing his knowledge with other users during his outlandish workshops and events. In addition to introducing students to new technologies, Russell's infectious energy has also helped inspire an exchange between image makers and developers to make Adobe products the standard by which others are measured. We'll introduce you to Russell in a second, but before we continue, we'd like to hit you up with a little favor. Like they say back in Bensonhurst, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. So, this is an easy one. If you enjoy the show, and a box of donuts says if you're listening right now, you do, please take a moment to post a review on Apple Podcasts. Listener feedback is responsible for many of the tweaks we've made over time to make this podcast the kind of show you want to tune into. Also, for those of you who don't yet subscribe, regular updates from us are only a click away, and they're totally free. Please join us. We'd love to have you as part of our family. Now, with that bit of business out of the way, Russell Preston Brown, welcome to our show.
Well, I'm pleased to be here. And Alan, I just have to say, this is Alan I'm talking to. That is a voice. That is a radio voice. That is an introduction I have been waiting for all my life.
Would you believe it? After all that, it still cost me $3 to get on a subway. You believe that? And
wow.
Thank you. And thank you. Anyway, you were hired as Adobe's first graphic designer in April of 1985 by none other than the company's co-founder, John Warnock. Adobe was only founded in December of 1982, making you one of the earliest employees. Now, what constituted working as a graphic designer at that time? Was there much crossover between graphic design and photography, or were you primarily concerned with like typefaces, vectors, and such?
1985 is truly the beginning of time. And I had just stopped using stone knives and bear skins for most of my work. I'm not joking. We're talking rub down type and rapidographs. This was the dark ages. And I've come to Adobe as the first graphic designer, art director, because they needed to show the world that this thing called PostScript was going to change the world and that desktop publishing was just around the corner. And so...
And don't buy stock in Letraset. Right? Raise your hand if you remember that name, folks. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm not going to go down that path. Where was I in the history of time? So why do they need a graphic designer? They need a graphic designer who can program in PostScript at that time. I had to learn the PostScript language so I could draw a circle and a square and put photos on a page. So I had to write this code to create a page before you had programs that you could just lay out a page. So I had to show the potential of PostScript, even though we didn't have Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, Acrobat. So that's in the first few years at Adobe.
Now, who taught you to do that? Because this is all brand new stuff.
This is all brand new stuff. I had a young and agile, flexible brain that could actually learn at that time. Unlike now, I just sat down and there was a PostScript book about writing PostScript, certain things I could and could not do. And so my first task, reveal this, was to hire a programmer to work with me.
Ooh.
Oh, he's revealed the truth. It needed a programmer. Now, the language was a very straightforward language. If you wanted to draw a circle, I think you did 360 curve 2. You'd write that exact words into this dumb terminal and send it off to a printer, and it would draw a circle for you. But yeah, there's so many other details involved. So getting a programmer to help me create a page, and I had to create an actual newsletter entirely by writing the code for that newsletter that easily could have been laid out in InDesign today in about a day, but it took us, 2 weeks to write the page in PostScript.
The word agonizing came up a lot because I remember those days, and it was hard. Things were not
It was
instant.
hard. Yeah. Do you still have your bear skins and the stone knives?
So is it fair to say that a lot of what you did early on was sort of proof of concept kind of stuff?
Very much so. Mine was to prove that this typography, we had scalable type, we had Illustrator graphics, we could put an image on a page. And so the proof was this document, this newsletter I put out. And we sent this out and they go, wow, okay, so this potential is hiding here. All we have to do is create the tools to bring it to life. And those were, the first tool, the most dramatic one might have been PageMaker, was a big introduction from Aldous. And of course, John Warnock would always say to me, the 3 things you needed scalable text, you needed illustration lines from Illustrator, and you needed what they called in those days halftones, which meant photographs. So you need those 3 elements. And that's what John was trying to bring to publishing at the time. And so there, the proof of concept. Could you put all of those on the same page with a single application for users? Yeah, crazy times.
I remember getting an application that allowed me to use several software applications and keep them open at the same time. It was called, I think, Software Carousel. It was revolutionary. It cost $25. Something I'm kind of curious about is that around that same time, I had an acquaintance who became the senior art director at Microsoft. And when he got the job, he had a very interesting request that they bowed to. And that he said, I'm going to take this job and I look forward to it, but my studio is going to be Apple because Windows is not up to speed yet. What was your platform back then?
Okay, we all started with the Mac in the box. So I was on a Mac connected to the Laser Writer at the time because that had just come out in 1984. And so that Mac was my choice at the time. But I also worked with a dumb terminal at the time, but I'd never worked with a PC in those early days. And I did hear this story about this art director. And I think it was over time that Microsoft came to that conclusion that they just weren't easy enough to use. But today,
there's not much difference, is there?
Today, 50% of our Photoshop users are on a PC. I think those figures are still true. I think it's an inexpensive, high-powered platform for working with Photoshop. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, 50-50. Interesting.
Yeah, really quite surprising to hear that that's still the case. I think it comes down to cost and speed. And the processing speed, you can get so much more power for the buck on a PC platform. And once you get into the PC world with Photoshop and have a nice monitor, you are sort of insulated. You're now inside of Photoshop, all of the controls. And now that we have the cloud working with us, I think its interface is somewhat invisible. But I got so caught up in dealing with the Macintosh. I remember one of my worst days in my life was, oh, Russ, come on, you need to promote the PC. You need to do a demo in front of 1,000 people using a PC. Oh, what a mistake. What a terrible demo. Oh, I was so lame. I'm surprised they didn't laugh. A Macintosh user using a PC for the first time. Oh, again, shivers. Moving on. Later that day.
So, Russell, I'm curious.
Yes.
When you arrived at Adobe, did you have any formal training in photography to complement your graphic design work?
So I went to the University of Washington up in Seattle, and I took darkroom photography there. The chemistry, dipping your hands in chemicals all day long. And then, so we had it in high school, we had it in college. And then once again, I took photography at Art Center College of Design in Pasadena. And so I had quite a bit of darkroom and photography with film. So yeah, I had a good background in it before joining Adobe.
And what kind of work were you doing with photography back then?
Black and white. I was experimenting. I was looking at the work of Jerry Ullsman at the time.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Highly influenced by that darkroom manipulation and the surreal. And I loved Magritte, Picasso, Jerry Ullsman, put them all together, stir them up. And I tried to recreate that world. But I drifted, I had this sort of minor in photography and filmmaking and drifted toward design. So I came out of school as a designer and I went to Adobe as a designer. But I've mutated and changed again. He's mutated one more time into a photographer now. And I only shoot with an iPhone. I should say mobile phones, because I shoot with an iPhone and a Samsung S24. And so I've set myself out. My goal in life is to show that fine photography can be done with a mobile device and then processed with Lightroom and Photoshop. Yeah.
Question for you on that subject. I'm gathering right now that aside from the fact that in school you had film photography, analog photography, you basically went from a film platform into mobile photography, skipping DSLRs and mirrorless. Am I hearing you correctly on that or no?
There was a transition point there. I had the Canon 5D Mark II was my sort of go-to early camera. So there was this time in there where I was shooting with that. But it was very much right after the introduction of the iPhone. Correct me, was the iPhone introduced in 2006? 2007, okay. So there marks the point where, what? There's a phone in this camera? Wait, I got that right. There's a camera in this phone? That was a big change. And I started to move away from the DSLR. The quality was terrible, but it was the speed and wherever you are, you have your camera.
The spontaneity.
It was the software adjustments that you could do that intrigued me that I didn't have with the DSLR. It's the immediacy of having the image ready to go. And as you all know, as things started to progress, better and better quality cameras, better resolution, the introduction of the internet, the introduction of more Photoshop features, then the introduction of Lightroom, I think that all just, boom. 10 years ago, Lightroom came out on the iPhone. Mm-hmm. That's where I really jumped and just threw out my DSLRs and went for the iPhone because I could go right into Lightroom and start processing images. So the answer is there was a transition in there with DSLRs. Oh, yeah.
See, I'm fighting this thing right now. Last year, my wife and I, we went to Portugal, and I brought my full-frame mirrorless camera, a Sony A7R3, and my little battery, my favorite Zeiss lenses. And I would say that 97% of all the pictures I took with my iPhone 13.
Yes.
And I hate to admit this, and like we have another trip coming up next week, and I'm looking at that bag, and I'm looking at my phone, and I'm weighing it out again. And I'm saying to myself, what exactly do I need? But I'm also wrestling with the fact that the pictures, as good as the quality is from my phone, they're amazing photographs I'm getting.
Yes.
They're different from what I get with the larger format camera.
Yes.
The signature of the image is different. Technically, they're amazing, but it's a different signature, and that's what I'm trying to grapple with now.
Alan, do you think that's about your brain interfacing with the tool, or is it the tool's?
It's a combination of everything else. I mean, it's just it's hard to let go of something that is ingrained in me, even though I'm fully recognizing what I'm getting using this wonderful phone. And my camera, I can't talk to anybody on my camera. They still didn't put a phone in the damn thing.
I need to tell you something that Thomas Knoll told me. This I found very interesting. He's one of the creators of Photoshop. And I said, I'm shooting only with my iPhone. He says, well, then you're hallucinating, Russ.
Ooh.
Because the iPhone is a hallucination of what you are seeing. It truly is.
Would you care to expound upon that?
It hallucinates the colors and the dynamic range and the quality of light, and it gives us what it wants us to remember from that moment. If you compare your reality to what the iPhone gives you, it's this saturated hallucination of the beautiful streets of Portugal and Lisbon. Did you go to Lisbon?
Oh, yeah, sure.
And I look at my images and he's a little bit right. They are a hallucination, an exaggeration. They are how the programmer at Apple interprets the pixels that we take a photograph of. What is their vision for that particular scene? Now, you've all gone quiet. Russ is out of his mind, or Russ, that's an interesting point you make.
No, actually, you just confirmed
Yes.
something I've been saying for a while, and that is that when you're talking about reality, reality, I always say, is a concept for people with no imagination. So you're kind of confirming that for me,
Okay.
photographically.
When Thomas Knoll said it to me, I started to agree. I do like, what do I love about the iPhone? I love the fact that it always makes my skies bluer than they are in reality.
Yeah.
And so I love that, and I want that look. And does a DSLR, does it give you more? It's not processing it. There's not a programmer between you and the pixels. Well, I guess maybe there is. Somebody's interpreting that pixel as it.
They're trying for a more accurate representation of reality.
And they give you.
And I think that trend's happening in phones as well. They're becoming a little bit less psychedelic.
Psychedelic magic mushroom moments.
Well, there's actually a cultural thing about the color that we see in our photographs, and that is, it's a known fact that cameras designed in Japan from like Sony, Canon, they do have a more saturated and a slightly warmer a palette, because that is the cultural preference of that part of the world. Whereas if you were to take a comparable photograph with, say, a Leica, it's more neutral. And they always do that. In fact, the difference between the Panasonic point-and-shoots and the Leica point-and-shoots, which are one and the same, is that the Panasonic version will give you a slightly punchier, warmer image compared to the more neutral Leica image from the quote-unquote same camera.
That's interesting, Alan. Just a quick aside into the audio world. The same phenomenon crops up in audio. Records that are made and mixed and recorded and mastered in Japan have a different sound to them.
Wow.
There's something about the cultural aspect that's infiltrating some of these technologies. Kind of cool.
Yeah.
How does my trend, I'm trying to move the world toward mobile phone photography. It scares my friends at Canon and Nikon. Does it scare people at B&H, if I can bring up that subject.
No, obviously it is. Again, I'm not hanging out with the buyers, but I'm sure they're concerned about that.
You're partly to blame, Russell.
I have been told that I represent 1/2% of the world's users. Right. So I think, can I take us down a path of interest that does bring us back,
please,
to purchase of products? I'm trying to promote, and I think it's, for me, it's really exciting, is shooting strobes with my phone. And so I have Profoto gear that I'm buying in combination with my phone. There is no logic to this, ladies and gentlemen. I should be really using a DSLR with my strobes for higher quality, but it's a phone. And so I do all my portraits and with the Profoto strobes that are synchronized. And I'm sitting here, I'm buying strobes, I'm buying backdrops, I'm buying modifiers to modify my strobes. I've got a room full of crazy B&H products. It's pretty wild. And I've turned into this photographer and this portrait photographer, and I'm terribly fascinated by new ways. And anytime I see some new modifier, I'm going to B&H site and looking to see if I can buy that. Or am I?
Please finish the question.
Am I normal?
No.
Are there? Okay.
No, you're a photographer.
Oh, there we go.
On a very serious note, let me ask you a question now, because I've seen all this, and I'm fascinated by the fact that, and I want to talk to you about how you actually get all of this gear to work together. Again, you're using a telephone to operate photographic strobes. Okay, just exactly what it was designed to do. But my whole question is, even though Profoto has some incredibly small, high-powered lights, and then they have some small, they're like the size of a can of Coke, and they're blasting out, 250, 500 watt seconds of light that you could really put through an umbrella or into a softbox and do, quote-unquote, real lit photography, real lighting, okay? You've got all this stuff, and I keep coming back to this image I saw of this guy who came out with an adapter. He could put all his Canon lenses on his phone, and he's got a 600 millimeter f4 lens on a phone. It's like, at that point, why don't you just put a camera on the back of it? You're already hurting your back.
Let's say there's a buzzer goes like, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen, is putting that 600 millimeter lens on a phone. Stop it. Okay, there is a point of total insanity, and you have hit it. And I'm ready to slap those people. Even me, I'm using an iPhone to do mobile photography, but no.
So where's the cutoff point?
No. That is comparable to putting a 6-foot spoiler on the back of a Volkswagen from the 1960s. Okay, why did you put that 6-foot spoiler on the back of your Volkswagen?
That guy drives around your neighborhood too?
It looks powerful and looks good, but is that really logical? So a very good point. There. I think I don't. When I show my stuff off, I like it to be mobile, and I want to be able to have my iPhone and my strobe in one bag. And I think that's where Profoto's going, not to ring their bell too much, but they've got these new pop-up modifiers that you don't have to struggle to pop up a modifier. They just pop open. And you said the Coke can. And so I use that Coke can sized strobe. It's not super powerful in combination with a modifier. And if it can't fit into a suitcase, then you're really not mobile. And I can't inspire others to be mobile unless it really is. And that, 600 millimeter lens. However, I am thinking of photographing the upcoming solar eclipse that comes across the United States using a Samsung phone in their 20x mode, which is an optical zoom built into the Samsung. But I won't be putting the 600 millimeter lens onto my Samsung. I will be using the built-in lens. I think that's much more practical.
Do you have to take any precautions by aiming that magnification at the sun?
Yeah, you can destroy... I'm going to change my voice again. How many phones did you ruin during the solar eclipse? No, ladies and gentlemen, let's make it clear. Russell Brown is going to put a solar filter on his Samsung phone.
Okay, thank you.
To protect the lens, or he would destroy that. He would burn into the sensor immediately if he pointed at the sun. So he's got a solar filter over there, which blocks. It's the same solar filter you can look through with your eyes. So it's that, if you don't destroy your eyes, you're not destroying the Samsung camera. But at the point of totality, when the moon is directly in front of the sun and there are no more rays of light coming toward our eyes, at that point, I would take the solar filter off of my Samsung phone and I would start to take some bracketed exposures of the solar eclipse. It's that fine detail that we all familiar with, the corona spreading out into space. And
Right.
I did an experiment during the annular eclipse with the Samsung, and I was really quite surprised. I even captured a sunspot on the sun with the Samsung S23. Yes, I'm using an S23.
Right.
So let me ask you a question. We were talking about iPhones, and we were talking about Samsung. You use different phones, okay? Because and obviously different phones have different, let's call them personalities, and visual signatures. Could be the color or the way it records or whatever. What are some of the key differences that you find between some of the major phones that you've been using?
It's a very good question. I'm glad you asked that question. I use 3 different phones. In my daytime photography, I like the color look of the iPhone. It's like I like Kodachrome film. So in daytime, I'm going to shoot Kodachrome. And that's my go-to daytime photography. As I move into photographing a Milky Way, for an example, the winner for the Milky Way photography is the Google Pixel 7. Google has the ability to capture the Milky Way like no one else on the planet. Software programming, they remove the Earth rotation, they align the 15 photographs they're taking over a 4-minute time period. Rock solid, unbelievable night photography. Milky Way, they win the game there. Going down from there, the Samsung might come in number 2 on the Milky Way. And I bring up the Milky Way because it's so delicate and so detailed. You can take pictures of stars, that's not a problem, but the Milky Way is really quite delicate. However, if I'm going to take a picture of the Golden Gate Bridge here in San Francisco area where I am, Apple wins the day on the Golden Gate Bridge. Their color quality, their dynamic range from the shadows to the highlights is better than what I'm getting from the Google or the Samsung. Now I'm in trouble. People are going to write into the show. Well, I work for Google and I hate you. But no, if you do go out to the Golden Gate Bridge, and it goes back to the point about the look. I like the Apple look for the Golden Gate Bridge. If I showed you 3 shots of the Golden Gate Bridge at night from those 3 different phones, people might choose one of the others rather than my choice of the Apple. Do you agree with that?
Well, what's interesting, Russell, is there's actually the software now called, I think it's Photoshop, which allows you to manipulate the colors.
Shift Command L, man, it's magic. I'm telling you.
You guys are bad. Lightroom is where I take them first. And yeah, I can make the Samsung look. I can bring it into the way I want it to look, and I make the Google Pixel bring it into my range as well. But I see not all programmers are the same. Oh, now I'm going to get into deep trouble when people are listening to this.
Go for it.
You're really talking about the programmer who's programming that pixel as it comes in through the lens. The sensors, I've been told, are very similar on these cameras. So the sensor data comes in, and now the programmer stands between you and what appears on the screen. And so I say it's the programmer at Google, it's the programmer at Samsung and at Apple who make this determination. And I like what the programmers at Apple are doing. Ooh, did I say this? Oh, I did. I did.
By the way, there's nothing wrong with that because it's parallel in camera manufacturing.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know what the status is right now, but for the longest time, most of the sensors that were in many of the cameras that were competing against each other were all made by Sony.
Yes.
And what's the difference between it? How Canon processed the color and everything, the contrast, and how Nikon did it. But for a while, there were a lot of cameras all with the same exact sensor in it, and the only difference was how those engineers interpreted the information that's being captured. No difference.
Mm-hmm.
Alan, is that even within the digital negative? These differences, do they crop up in?
I'm not sure, but I'm going to say no because digital negative is basically all the data that the sensor captures without any editing, without anything. That's just everything there is. Nothing's been touched.
We don't have access to the digital negative. We only get to see the raw data that's been interpreted.
Right.
Sometimes I know what I'm talking about. Sometimes I don't. But it's been touched by each of the programmers on the way to. If you compare the raw files, go back to the Golden Gate Bridge at night, you look at all three raw, and they've been interpreted differently from similar sensors.
Sure.
Even then. Okay. Gotcha.
Yes.
So, Russell, on that note of interfacing with programmers, what in your history with Adobe was your experience in interfacing with the programmers in the development of Photoshop from the earliest days?
I have a funny thing. I turned to the early days. In the early days, there was 3 people working on Photoshop. And we turned to each other and go, do you like it? I like it. Do you like it? Let's do it. Okay. That has changed dramatically today with 1,000 people making that same decision. I just think back to those early days of making decisions and getting things done, obviously, a little bit faster. Did we do them better back then? I don't think we did them better. But I enjoyed working directly with programmers. I still do enjoy working directly with programmers. And what's even better, and now I'm going to get in trouble with Adobe, I love to sort of do skunk works and sort of work directly with a programmer and come up with something that's unique and different, but don't take it through a committee. Ouch. And so I don't get that opportunity as much as I did in the past. Maybe on some personal projects. That's why I went off and made actions and scripts and panels for Photoshop so I could jump in and make my own tools built within Photoshop. And I did that several years back and worked directly with a programmer. And that was one-on-one with a programmer. And again, do you like it? I like it. Let's do it. And that way I could distribute tools to Photoshop users without having to change the interface or make adjustments to Photoshop. I can merely insert the tools in as an action script. That was a pretty cool opportunity that I did several years ago.
You're the guy responsible for that? I hope that's on your resume. That's pretty
good.
good.
A few. On my resume, somebody said to me, Russ, have you seriously considered getting onto LinkedIn to expand your career? I'm going, wait a minute, I'm 68 years old. I'm 38 years at Adobe. I don't think I need to expand my career at this time. What am I going to do? Okay, no, I'm slowing down. Let's make it the record. Russ focuses on inspiring people on Instagram and Facebook, and I'm really focused on special events and trade shows. So I'm really focused on Adobe Max.
I want to ask one question to plug into the previous thing we were talking about. It was just a little comment that I wanted to throw in there about using different phones for different types of photographic applications. Each of these phones have their own little signature that they use. It reminds me a lot that I was told Brian Wilson of Beach Boy fame, he uses recording studios the same way. He's very attuned to texture of sound, and all of the recording studios in Los Angeles, he knows the signature of each of the studios, and there are certain songs that he'll only record in certain studios. And I think there were a couple of songs that were recorded pieces of each song in different studios to get the sound he needed, because the studio itself is an instrument.
Yeah. Wow. I'm going to use
that's basically
this
what
in the
you're
future.
doing.
I'm going to steal this one.
Here's another quick factoid that might be interesting on that same vein. The sound of Talking Heads, which has a very staccato, a very kind of lively and percussive sound, that happened because of the slapback echo and room effect of playing at CBGB's. It's a direct result of their live performances. They wanted to record that in the studio and get that same sound. So interesting. But yeah, Brian Wilson, his main instrument is the recording studio itself.
Interesting stuff.
Anyway.
On that note, we're going to take a short break for local traffic and weather. You know we don't really do that. And we come back more with Russell Preston Brown and the history of Photoshop and where the heck we're going with it. Stay tuned.
The renowned optics from Leica are not just for cameras anymore. The Leica Cine 1 ultra-short-throw laser TV projectors come in 100 and 120-inch models that present vivid color, 4K imagery, and 3D sound, while also functioning as a smart TV. The projectors pair with 100-inch daylight or 120-inch cinema projection screens that are viewable in bright daylight or in total darkness. The Cine 1 laser TV only needs to sit a foot from the screen to reproduce lifelike color and a sharp picture, bringing a true cinema experience to your living room. Head on over to bnh.com for more information about the Leica Cine 1 laser TV and companion projection screens.
Okay, we are back once again with Russell Preston Brown, one of the original people from Adobe, and he was there at the very birth of Photoshop. In fact, he bought coffee and cookies for everybody at the hospital after the birth. Anyway, Russ, you're described as being the first professional evangelist for Photoshop, and early on you gave separate presentations for design and photography communities. Since photographers tended to be a tough sell back then, what kind of rapport did you have with the photographic purists who were against manipulation of any sort? And I know that they exist.
Boy, there are stories. It was a challenge in the beginning, and I reached out to photographers and I reached out to designers, and the designers may have come a little bit later in 1988 when I approached designers with Adobe Illustrator and Adobe, not InDesign at that time, it was Illustrator and our type library and PageMaker at the time.
Right, that's right.
But let's go back to photographers. I can clearly remember one moment that sort of opened up my eyes to the resistance. I was in Perpignan, France, by invitation of Rick Smolin of Day in the Life. And he wanted me to come out. He says, Russ, it's time to introduce digital to this world, this analog world of press photographers. Did you just laugh?
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, let's give this a try. They're doing all their sessions in Perpignan.
Hardcore photojournalism there.
Oh, hardcore. Whoa. And so I'm stepping into the lion's den, and they're just ready to claw me up. And huge resistance. I'm the evil one. I'm set aside in a little side room, and many people came in cloaked so their friends wouldn't see them going in to talk to me. It was so. And
Did they put you
wow.
into a lamb suit just to get?
Yes, yeah, and scented with the. Oh yes, and so I came out. I survived it, but it was very, very interesting to feel. I wish I knew the exact date of this. And then the early 90s, I had slideshows, I gave presentations, but extremely skeptical that digital would ever become anything. And Photoshop, adjusting my images and accepting a digital camera in this forum was just unthinkable at the time. I think I got that same response in that same time frame trying to introduce this to Greg Gorman. And Greg would just, no, you show me the day when a digital camera can have equal quality to this 35 millimeter piece of film, and I think, quote, Greg Gorman, I will never switch to digital. I'm always going to keep on using film. That's what I said in the 70s when I gave up my record player, my albums. I was the first to jump away from albums. So that was an interesting point. The early 90s, huge resistance. But I think it was because there just weren't enough cameras of quality at the time. And we can see this progression of adoption of digital from photographers totally based upon the quality of the cameras. And I must have had every camera known to man when it came out on the market.
I think it's important to keep in mind also for our listeners who were not around there at that time and in the market, and that in mid-90s, early 90s, you can buy for about $17,000 to $25,000 a 3.2 megapixel camera.
Yeah.
That will give you lousy image quality and was much in demand. There was a good argument to say that film was better at that time. Very easy to fight it.
So, education-wise and evangelize, you start in Perpignan and you get booed off the stage. And then you expand out from there and you go to the Kodak Center Photography in Camden, Maine. They got that set up and running. That was an educational site. And Kodak has their very first digital camera. I don't know if you remember this. It was tethered to a 20-pound brick that you held over your shoulder, which was a disk drive and a power supply. So it's essentially a Kodak film camera altered to become a digital camera. And you'd walk around with this backpack. It reminds me of those first mobile phones. You remember those giant mobile phones? And I remember some photographers would show up and said, the closest or the only way I'm going to get next to a computer is by pointing at one. From photographers. Yes, that's a computer. But they're not going to sit down and touch it or use it. It just didn't feel right, did it, in those days? As a photographer, why you put the film in the camera, you go shoot, and you process the film. It was uncomfortable. It was, it's, okay, you're going to learn to drive a car.
It was very slow, too. It was no speed.
It
would take an hour to download 1 gig of data off a card.
We forget about the speed, don't we? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Russell, this is interesting to me because, you know, that means for over a decade at Adobe, the pioneers and the visionaries who were creating software such as Photoshop had to contend with this reality that the infrastructure wasn't quite up to snuff to make this a viable thing. But there was never a diminishment of the dream.
The dreams were different. Remember, I said the halftones earlier? The dream, our first goal, was prepress and taking images and processing them and creating CMYK output for a publication. And so the photographers came a bit later. And so I think we were moving down that path. And I think Thomas Knoll and others at Adobe were seeing the new cameras came out. And it wasn't until Thomas Knoll got an advanced Canon camera, I think it was, or was it Nikon? And this thing, Camera Raw, came out. And that's when there was another change. There was a shift. And the camera manufacturers were starting to take interest and understanding how serious this was getting, because they were coming out with RAW support at the time. And that really was special to photographers, the ability to access the raw data. If we're looking at this sort of timetable, first came the basic camera, then a little bit higher resolution, more portability, then RAW came along again. Boy, I wish I'd say RAW is late 90s.
It's funny that you bring up RAW. Steve Sasson, who we interviewed a couple months ago, who heralded in the digital camera, expressed a similar problem, which was that they created a compression algorithm that threw away 80% of the data, but the resulting photograph was indistinguishable from the photograph if they just captured all of the data from that sensor. But even though it was an indistinguishable image at the end of that result, selling that idea of throwing away data, throwing away, quote, detail, resolution, was something that didn't pass the smell test with photographers. And he had to really sort of sell that. And then I think what you're saying is, when this idea of we don't have to throw away the stuff, you can have all of it, that really clicked for some photographers. Is that right?
Yeah. Each camera manufacturer in those early days thought of their RAW files as being better than everyone else's. And they also hid the secrets behind their conversion to RAW as a corporate secret, that this is the way we interpreted the bare data from the sensor, and we're giving you this raw image. And in the early days, they wouldn't even tell us how they were making this conversion. And Thomas Knoll had to reverse engineer the raw data from the Canon and Nikons, and then come out with a profile that we could use in Photoshop and Lightroom. I think it's a little easier these days. The camera manufacturers share their information about their camera profiles, because we have to come up with a camera profile for each new camera. Can you believe that? Gosh, that's a lot of cameras.
I can, because I get an update every week for a new camera set.
That's another interesting point. My camera is better than your camera because we interpreted the raw data better than you did, was another thing that came out. I remember in those early.
Right. We have better color science.
Yes. Yeah. We can equate that back to, we have better chemistry. That gives you a good idea of the early days.
Yeah, it's amazing. So what about looking at where we are with software, Photoshop, Lightroom, and digital imaging now? And looking at the generations of users, the users who are older and who are a tough sell, but have adopted digital imaging, and then the younger people who grew up with these tools. Do you see any differences in the way people use Photoshop and Lightroom?
Being the older, I can represent the older user. And I know that I'm slow to adopt things, even myself. I stuck to Photoshop for the longest time. And then Lightroom came along, and I didn't think I was so much of a Lightroom user until Lightroom Desktop came along. I wasn't the type who liked to sort my images. However, I'm not a wedding photographer. I'm not a professional photographer. I don't have to have images to a client within hours. So I didn't go down the path of Lightroom Classic, but Lightroom Desktop jumped at me. And I think that was also planned for this new user, as you were discussing, the younger user. Desktop gives you the powers and capabilities, but in a sort of a user-friendly, approachable interface, and also stretches all the way down to your iPhone and your iPad. And that's the other thing that's just blown me out of the water. It changed my life, is the ability to shoot with the phone, transfer to Lightroom on the phone, then Lightroom to my iPad, and then from my iPad to my desktop. I've got this whole workflow to process my images. But thinking back, I think certainly that the new kids on the block are learning Photoshop in high school. And that's just one of those things that they're learning to use very quickly and easily. And I equate it back to, I don't know, I'm an old codger. I took typing class in the 70s. And I thought, well, this is the dumbest class that I'll ever take, to learn to type. And now these days I realize how important that is. And I think kids today have a much better appreciation for learning to type and interface and keyboards and Photoshop in high school. And I don't know whether maybe they're teaching Lightroom in high school, but yeah, it's a new age of young kids picking up on digital much, much faster. And with, this type of training going on, where does that leave us? I think I'm a classic user. The classic users we pick up what we need to pick up. And though we can get caught in our ways as well, we know how to do a particular way of processing an image in Photoshop and Lightroom, and we stick to it. And take me, for example. I am an early user of levels. Levels is extremely powerful in Photoshop. And levels is my way that I change color cast. I go into the red, green, and blue channels of an image, and I adjust color cast. But that's a thing of the past. Now everybody uses all of the other sophisticated tools for adjusting color cast. So as the old dog, I not learning new tricks. I never used the new color balance or capabilities in Lightroom or Photoshop. Very sophisticated, midtones, highlights, shadows. I have all of those in levels. Are you levels people? And so I can get it done with the older tools, and the same way that maybe new users are getting it done with these brand new tools in Photoshop.
Well, I think that's an important thing, because basically you have this one application that could be used depending on how you're comfortable at any different level.
Yes.
It's not like you have to use this route. No, there are many routes to get to the same point, and they'll all do the same thing, but what are you comfortable with? That's really what it boils down to.
Yeah.
Alan, that's an interesting point, because you have now some of these pieces of software which are many decades old. I'm using right now Pro Tools, which is an digital audio workstation, which has many iterations and incarnations, and in 2023 it's a very different beast, but it's kept from the mid and early 90s when it first was introduced, all of the original tool sets. As it expands into new frontiers and a whole new way of audio editing, all the old stuff is never thrown away. And that's interesting to me, because there are people who are starting Photoshop or Pro Tools who are 15 years old, and there are people who are still using it, and who started using it back in the 90s, and they're 80 years old. So it needs to encompass this really broad user base.
We hesitate. Oh, we hesitate throwing old things away. It's just so dangerous. That's like, moving the stick shift on your car. That would really drive our users crazy. If we ever change the interface, we always have to have a legacy switch in our preferences. I don't know if you notice. if you don't want to move into the future, you can click the legacy button and be right back where it used to be.
Right.
That's just something very dangerous.
That's the little abacus icon on the top, right?
No, it's the come now. It's the stone knife. It's a stone knife icon.
Speaking about stone knives, can we talk about the 800-pound gorilla for a while?
Yeah. Is it time?
Oh yeah, man. We've been kicking this can down the road for a while. I just want to tell you that. I mean, we're talking about AI now, and this is something I've been eyeballing it with piss eyes for a long time. And then about a month ago, I decided, all right, I'm going to start playing with Firefly, and it's been an adventure. Just as one example, I mean, I started just using prompts, and I have been working on a personal project on benches in city parks, in this very specific style. In monochrome. And I went in with prompts and I gave very detailed description of my photographs. And it came up with an amazing quote unquote photograph that will fit perfectly in with my series. And I did a few of them, and there's one or two that they are as photographic as it gets, and it's exactly in the style of the same visual signature as the photographs I'm doing. And then I started using my own old Kodachromes as basis for new works, taking a picture of something and then describing it or hitting song lyrics to it or something. And I'm fascinated by what's coming out on my screen. The problem I'm having with it, though, is that every time I hit that refresh button and get 4 new amazing variations of this data, it's not much different than when I was 5 years old and I held that cardboard a kaleidoscope in front of and turned it and watched all the colors fall into place. It's random. It looks great, but this is not my vision per se. I'm influencing it. But this is just random chaos coming up on the screen.
Interesting. Before I make my statement and set the stage for this, perhaps I'll just set the stage and so you know where I stand on all of this. When AI initially came out, before Adobe jumped into the ring, and I looked at typing text in, space girl on Mars with frogs. Okay, it bored the heck out of me. It just like, that isn't interesting at all. How stupid. I would fly to Mars with a space girl and bring some frogs because I'm a photographer.
Right.
But zero, that did nothing. I avoided it for the longest time. But it wasn't until the Adobe synchronized it, brought it into Photoshop, that I could take my own photograph and add things to it. Because I grew up as a graphic designer and then mutated into a photographer. So graphic designers will do anything to get your attention. And photographers, I know photographers who won't even remove a phone line from their photograph. We know these people exist. The people who would never remove a phone line, and the people like me who would move the pyramids if it mattered. And so my theory and my feeling on this whole thing is, and it's very old school, I would rather go to the desert and photograph the person than type in the prompt for going to the desert to photograph the person. But if I go to the desert and photograph the person, I want to remove the footprints, and I want to change the sky, and I want to add an alligator in the desert if I want to, and I will. And that's where AI comes in for me as a photographer. I love photography. I want to get out and do photography, and then I want to enhance that photography once it's done. It's a little bit old school. I could be the Greg Gorman saying, I'll never give up film, but I'm here today to tell you that I'm never going to give up real photography and going into the field, but I'm going to supplement it with AI. There's my statement. Now your response.
There was a similar schism when we were talking to this AI photographer, or promptographer, as he calls himself, Boris Elgison.
Mm-hmm.
And I made the argument that, cameras and walking around in the world are what people are still going to do.
Yes.
And it's going to be kind of boring to just sit in a basement with a computer and an internet
What
connection.
about a 20-year-old? What about a 20-year-old? It's new to the world. Yeah, keep going. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I get it. But it still feels that, there's real things out there. And you want to go for a walk sometimes. And you want to be out in the world. And virtual reality is not there yet. Soon, I guess.
It's going to be so realistic. It's going to drive us crazy.
We're going to build the pleasure dome, that's coming. But for right now, I think, Alan, you can back me up on this, but I think that's sort of what the people I've spoken to, they sort of augment their photography with the help of these artificial assistants.
What do you feel about augmenting photography? In my position, I get attacked by trolls unless I tell you exactly what I augmented. I see a lot of stuff being done where people do not say that they've augmented their image.
Well, I think 2 new cameras over the past week, I think, have signed up for some sort of digital signature in the capture process that authenticates.
Yeah, Leica have that going on.
I think Sony also has made a stab at this, at stamping in with some sort of cryptographic signature that this was taken at a certain place at a certain time.
I use it do I use it haphazardly? I use it as if it were stock photography. I know I was a big stock photographer. If I needed a cat, I would go find one in stock photography. I needed a small cat in the windowsill. I'm the guy who would paste it in because it added to the story. It added to the image, and there was not a cat on the windowsill. Is that you can discuss whether I'm evil, but I would go to stock. I'd find a cat. God, you'd have to find the right cat. You'd spend hours finding the right cat with the right lighting, and then you'd paste the cat in, and it wasn't quite the right lighting. And so my life has changed. I just make a selection and say, add a cat. And it adds a cat in the shadows. It adds the lighting. It blends it into the edges. It's addicting. It's magical elixir. It's a drug. It's a drug. It's a whole new.
Do you know what it is? I'll tell you one of the key things that I think it is, and this is what I find, and that is that as a photographer, I'm photographing what's there in front of me.
Yeah.
All right, and you could fake a certain amount of stuff, and you could fudge things to a certain extent. As an illustrator, it's all what my mind's eye can see. All right. So that cat can be right or wrong. It doesn't have to be there. It can be there because it's an illustration. It's not quote unquote real anyway. But now we have a third sort of category, and that's the promptographers who are putting in stuff now, maybe starting with an original photograph and adding to it, or just creating an image just out of prompts. And in that case, there's no difference between a prompt-generated image and a watercolor or an acrylic illustration for the New York Times Sunday magazine section.
Oh, goodness gracious. The editorial has gone crazy with this, haven't they? Oh, goodness.
It's a whole new world, whole new palette.
Yeah. They don't need to go get the illustration done to illustrate an article in the New York Times or in a magazine. They can dream it up with words. Have we just aced out a huge number of photographers or illustrators whose job it was to create this editorial art? Wow, that's another podcast next week. We'll be
you are joining us next week, right?
So it's as we discuss this, you're making me feel a little guilty. Okay.
No, it's a process. It's evolution. Look, this people went nuts when they started taking photographs. Okay, there were people who went batshit crazy because of photographs. It's it's not art.
It's the end. It's the end of art. It's the end.
I know. Yeah,
Picasso and Renoir are history because photographs are here. No one's going to look at art anymore. will we prize a real photograph?
Well, in fact, you can say that photographs ushered in someone like Picasso.
Yeah.
And most AI looks cubist. It's just gone round the circle.
I remember I remember a photographer who joined one of my events. I'm not going to mention the name. And they were learning Photoshop for the first time, and they were mesmerized by the fine edges. And they took one of their classic photographs, amazing classic photograph, and they did fine edges to it. And I was ready just to vomit to see what they could do, the bad things you could do with Photoshop. And just yesterday, I got an email from a photographer who had done what you'd done, and they used AI. And I had this vision again, using the tools incorrectly.
Oh.
I could even go farther back. Think about typography. When typography was able to do that on a Macintosh, really bad typography came out from the Macintosh. Really bad things came out of Photoshop. Really bad things are going to come out of AI. Yeah. But maybe good things will come out in the end. Is there hope?
Well, when I was in SVA, I had a filmmaking workshop, and the teacher we had, I remember early on he was using just fixed focal length lenses, and then one day he came and he bought him for a zoom lens, and he was all excited, and everything moving forward, he did not stop zooming. It's like you got sick watching his stuff. All he did was zoom in and out the entire range because it looked so cool, nonstop. It's the same thing here. People, it's a new toy, it's novel. They're going to exploit it, get real tired, and they say, okay, what's essential here? What's bullshit?
Yeah.
It's a good analogy.
Hopefully.
Wow. Yeah, where will it go? Where will it go? And it's moving too fast. And it was a terrible film in the 70s called The Forbin Project, where a computer took over everybody's lives.
I don't remember that one.
No, it's so old. It's so terrible. It was so terrible. It was so old. I hope it got lost. But will Photoshop become conscious in the near future? And
So, Russell,
yes,
from your perspective, really in the midst of all of this, do you have any idea about what's down the pike, in 5 or 10 years' time?
Well, I can tell you, this is only guesses. I do not know the facts. Higher resolution, higher quality, mind-blowing things we can't even think of today. That's where we're going. I think it's going to be a crazy world, and I just think how lucky I am to have been born in this time, this crazy time. The things I've seen, the technologies that have happened are mind-boggling and amazing. And, there are bad times happening now, but they're technology-wise, some really, from a creative point of view, some remarkable miracles are happening that excite me and motivate me to be more and more creative all the time.
So one thing you talk about with shooting with the iPhone is that it involves fewer available pixels than other capture devices.
Oh, I got an answer for this one, too.
But you mentioned the idea that rather than more pixels, the future will tend towards smarter pixels.
Where did I say that? I said that once.
You did.
Did I say that to you?
We're going to link it in the podcast show
We're
notes.
holding you to this. You're not getting away with this one. We're holding you to it.
Smarter pixels. Explain.
So nobody wants a lot of pixels, especially on a phone, because you want to transmit it to your friends and you want to share it instantly and quickly. So the future, it's all about computational photography, and that's where we're going. And it's Apple, Samsung, and Google. By the way, they are all going for computational, and it's going to be a miracle, and they're going to take all these photographs, mush them together, and give you these amazingly accurate, small images. It's going to reinterpret it.
Is it fair to differentiate computational photography from digital photography?
Yeah, you capture a single photograph with a single sensor. Or do you capture 10 photographs with the same sensor at different settings and then merge them together.
Mhm.
And it's the array.
It's basically HDR.
Yes, it's a bit like HDR, isn't it? In that you're capturing the multiple photos, and that's probably what they're doing.
It's actually like good HDR, because do you remember when HDR was first a thing? There were so many people that would do bad HDR.
Sorry, I had to laugh into the microphone.
The analogy,
Wasn't-
Jill, seems to be coming up over and over again in this conversation. When a new technology emerges, people sort of play with it, and often in retrospection, those first attempts at being creative look a little bit coarse and sort of untamed and not finessed. And then when people get used to it, they sort of get better and better.
But the thing is, I think there's some people who sort of get stuck. Maybe it's like the one-trick pony thing, and they don't learn how to get better or how to evolve past the gimmick.
Well, how many people do you know that have a style? It could be illustrators or photographers, and you could recognize their pictures right off the bat because it's the same as every other picture they've taken.
Mm-hmm.
All right, it's kind of the same thing. You find something that works, and it works, and I'm not going anywhere else because this is working, and everybody likes it, and I don't want to, rock the boat. And it takes somebody who says, okay, this really works, and let's try something else. And it's the same thing, I think. I mean, people they exploit it all, and some people learn that, okay, this is a little bit too much, got to throttle back a little bit, and those are the people that move on and get better. And some people just keep, keeping all the filter sliders all the way to 10 because it's cool,
Yeah, that's where HDR did go. I remember moving all the sliders to give it that coarse, edgy, that, all the edges glowed. I must admit, I liked that style. Crusty. So it became an illustration.
Yeah.
I was more a style of illustration than anything else. But I do love stylizing photos. And that's another point. How many times have you seen a portrait that's been just over massaged to the point of like the plastic skin?
Right.
Look, good retouching is like good acting. You're not aware of a good actor, okay? It's the same thing, okay? Tickle it, but don't let anybody know you tickled it. Just know when to stop.
Right.
I hate a bad actor.
Russell, one thing I wanted to follow up on, you were loath to make a prediction of what's coming down the pike. I'm curious about, in terms of 10 years from now, there's some general things, but you can't get too heady about it.
I do have another prediction.
Yeah, and I'm interested to hear that, but I'm also interested to hear about previous predictions.
Excuse me. I'm laughing. I am the worst.
Yeah.
You asked me, did I see desktop publishing coming? No. Did I see how far Photoshop was going to go in the digital era? No. Did I know that pumpkin lattes would become crazy in California? No. I'm not. Oh, gosh. I'm the worst. But when a good idea does come along, I can tell you it's a good idea. Because I did think of another prediction I had around AI. And this is not anything that Adobe's working on. And I must say that publicly right now. It's only something that's come up in my mind. I haven't heard of anybody working on this. Nobody's working on this. It's completely out of Russell Brown's imagination.
Oh, boy.
But what I want is the future that I've got 10,000, I have thousands and thousands of photographs I've taken around the world. I want my own personal AI. I want to submit my photos to a training program. I'm sure this is going to happen someday. And here are all my photographs. I want you now. I'm going to type in model standing on a sand dune in Death Valley. And I've taken Death Valley photographs. I've got models, and it's going to make me a photo made entirely from my photo.
Alan,
there you go.
Alan, you
asked
have
that
mentioned
question.
this numerous times.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the future. That's
So
the
working on
future.
your own data set.
Yeah, because again, the
Yeah.
same thing here. I mean, I've been shooting since the 60s, and I've got Kodachromes going way back and digital files, and I want to be able to take my library and build on my imaging, create images that I couldn't do the first time around because I didn't have the technology to take this image in my head and get it down on a screen or a print.
So here's another one for you. You're about to retire, and you go, I need a little bit of extra money. You're going to sell yourself and your library for others to buy.
A marketplace.
Yeah, there will be the day when we sell our data set to make a little bit of money while we're in the old folks' home. And
I want to talk to you about that.
I may want your data to be included in my photos.
No, I'm gonna say something that it might sound a little bit kiss up, but the truth of the matter is it's really true. We've had a lot of guests on this show who have affected our lives. Definitely, okay? But you definitely have really changed many of our lives through the things that you did that became real, that are now tools that we use, that we accept as being the norm, but you're the one who banged your head against the wall to make them there. So on behalf of all of us, thank you.
I'm honored. I'm honored to have been part of this. And I will quickly say that, yes, I was in the right place at the right time, but I made my fair share of contributions, but it all comes back to, what if the Knoll brothers had not decided to make Photoshop? I want to see that Jimmy Stewart episode of A Wonderful Life where Photoshop didn't appear. Would we be using Letraset's version? Who
Whiteout,
would have come up with
extended kits of whiteout.
have to. Would there be multiple versions? Would Microsoft have one? Would Apple have a photo editing program? There was this niche that had to be filled, and we seem to come up with a de facto standard. And there's certainly competitors out there who try and create tools that have all the Photoshop capabilities. And some of them even copied the Photoshop menus. I loved those programs. If you can't make your own menus, so let's just take Photoshop's menus and put them into our own application. It would be really interesting to see. And there's the other Jimmy Stewart. What if I wasn't involved?
Yeah, exactly.
What would have happened then? It's a very interesting thing. Not that this is the end of my life, but it's getting to that point where you got to give up someday. You have to leave Adobe. You have to stop playing at some time.
You got to start something new. You've been dragging this on for a while now. Come on,
I've
come
been
up with
dragging
something
this
new,
on.
kid.
There are people at Adobe who spend 2 years at Adobe, then they go to 4 years to Apple, then 6 years over at Google, and then they're back at Adobe. The Silicon Valley hopping, the group of people that hop around from company to company. And I just got too settled in, and I enjoyed what I'm doing. And if you are
and you just change your costume.
Yeah, stop it. Yeah, I did. I have a theme each year. I just say this to people. If you are in a job that bores you silly and there's no creativity in the job at all, get the hell out of there. Maybe that's too easy to say. Maybe that job pays really well and you've got to do it and you got to pay the rent. And finding that perfect job, I was struck by lightning. I was extremely lucky. I was in the right place at the right time, but I think I had the talents to fall into place. I think I would have been fired a long time ago if I didn't deliver something.
Oh no,
back.
that's a fact. I mean, there's a limit to how far you can go just by shooting your mouth off and sounding real sparky. Yeah. But then you gotta produce. And if that's not the case, you're out. But you're still here.
Sounds like the students in my art center class when you're doing your crit on the wall. There was always that one person who really could just deliver. You have crap on the wall, but you could make crap really sound great. We all know those people. They could describe their crap on the wall. like no one else. And they ended up as a salesman at an ad agency.
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
Hey, there you go. You have a profound closing question for me. It's just been on your mind that you want answered. Is that right?
Yes. Have you or have you ever?
Oh. Yeah.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. That's right. We just wanted to know. That's all. It's been about, I think 4.5 hours so far that we've been recording, and we haven't even gotten to about half of the questions we really planned to talk with you about. But today's been a truly wonderful experience. And Russell Preston Brown, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us and give us some insights into how we got where we are today. And I know we put just a little bit of a dent in it. Your work is wonderful. And where can our listeners catch up on what you're doing? You're doing an awful lot.
That is a very good question. I'm glad you ended in this question. If you want to know what Russell Brown is up to, the best thing is to go to Instagram and check up on the things I'm doing. I post everything there, including my tutorials and my movies. But in terms of new products, new cameras, new phones, it's Dr_Brown. So essentially Dr. Brown. It's amazing. I thought, okay, I have to put an underscore in my name because no system could ever have a space in it. In the early days of Instagram, little did I know I could have just put Dr. Brown in. So Dr_Brown at Instagram to find out what I'm up to, latest new toys, and my latest new images that I am posting. And in terms of this next year, look for more photographs from my mobile phones. This is my year to give back to Adobe. As I gradually slow down, I'm going to give seminars to Adobe employees around the world. And then I'll finish off the year at Adobe Max in November in Los Angeles. And that's the sum of my next year.
Woo.
And I look forward to hey, could you imagine how fast the world is moving? What crazy new things are we going to have in Photoshop by November 2024? At the speed we're moving, it's going to be pretty amazing.
You know, I always describe people aging as, their paint is slowly drying, and at a certain point, the paint's dry. Your paint is still very wet, my friend, and it should stay that way for a long time. It's encouraging to hear somebody who's been around the block more than a few times, and I'm in your bracket, my friend, and you still have the right attitude. You're still looking forward to what's out there. You still have that spark of curiosity, and that's a magical thing, and it's a treasure to have, and it's been a pleasure sharing that little spark for the past hour or so with you, and we can't thank you enough for joining us. It's been a wonderful, wonderful interview.
I've done lots of interviews. I'm going to make a statement. I think this was one of my best and most interesting because I got to interview you. Did you notice that I was asking you? So that's my idea of a great interview. And I thank you so much for inviting me, and I appreciate it.
Thank you so
Russell.
much. It's great. It's wonderful.
It's been a great chat.
And if you don't invite me back, I'm gonna cry.
Oh, no. You're coming back, my friend. You're going to be back in that seat
We've got to
again.
invite you to come to New York.
Yeah, that's right. I need to get out to New York. I need to go to the elevated, the High Street.
Yes, the
High
High Line.
Line.
High Line.
yeah,
I need to go to the High Line. I walk down the High Line, go to the museum at the end, catch the latest museums in town, and do my
Come
New York.
to the B&H Superstore.
There we go. Maybe I'll tie that in to some sort of photographic event. We'll figure something out.
You know, we had a big 50th anniversary conference in September.
2 days at the Javits Center.
Yeah, that may become the next Photo Plus. So
Oh, I see. Keep me informed on that. I think it'd be fun to do a live on stage thing like this.
That would be the
To an
audience. And we
Yeah.
also found a
Yeah.
place that you can get a sandwich for under $60 within the walking distance of Javits. Which is
But is it a good sandwich?
yes,
Oh, it's very
yes.
good.
Well, then I'll take it. If it's a good sandwich for under $60, hey, come on.
Okay, again, Russell Preston Brown, thanks a million for being with us today, and you'll definitely be back in the studio with us. There's so much more that we want to talk about. If you are a fan of this show, but you're not yet a subscriber, head on over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts and click subscribe. You can also find us on the Explorer blog, where we post photos from our guests along with our show notes. And please join us on Facebook at the B&H Photography Podcast Group, where you can share your favorite photos and comments about the show. I'm your host, Alan Weitz. Jill Waterman is our creative producer. Episodes are recorded, mixed, and edited by technical producer Mike Weinstein. Our executive producer is Bjorn Peterson, and our editorial director is Sean Steiner. On behalf of all of us, thank you so much for tuning in today.
Thanks to Leica for sponsoring this week's episode.